Good afternoon, students. How are you all? Hope you all are fine. Okay, I am also fine. One small accident in the kitchen. Hot water spilled into my hand. That is why. Okay, in the afternoon. That's why I was not able to remove this one. Okay, otherwise no problem. Okay, shall we learn commerce? In commerce, we have completed 20 lessons. In these 20, whether they are going to take the remaining 8 lessons, we don't know. But we have limited time to complete. So I am completing these lessons very fast. Okay. So try to understand and the lesson. So read carefully and understand and listen carefully my teaching. Okay, then you will be able to understand and then learning by heart we will do later. Okay, students. So read 2-3 times, then you will be able to write something for the offered lesson. The 21st lesson, the Sale of Goods Act. When this act has been passed in 1930, okay, this Sale of Goods Act has been passed in the year 1930. Okay, so first we should know what is goods. Okay, that we will learn. Before that, we should understand about the sale. Okay, so what is the sale? The meaning of sale we are going to learn under the heading the contract of sale. Okay, the contract of sale. Simply not sale, they have given the contract of sale of goods. So you should understand the simple meaning only. Sale we know, isn't it? What is the sale? The seller will sell the goods, the buyer buy the goods, and after paying the price, the buyer gets the ownership, isn't it? So here what is taking place? Two transaction. One, the transfer of property, or that ownership is transferred, and what he gets, the seller, he gets the price in turn, isn't it? So one he gives, another one he gets, if we say in accountancy, isn't it? One giving aspect and getting aspect, receiving aspect. So here also, under the contract of sale of goods, the seller, he agrees to, he is agreeing, like means he is agreeing in a contract. Okay, sale of goods means not at the time of transferring the ownership of goods. We will learn different type of sale. Okay, they will in future date also we can sell the goods. Okay, now we will make an agreement. That is, the agreement is called contract. So here the seller agrees to transfer the ownership of goods to the buyer. Okay, so two people involved are that seller and buyer, isn't it? So he agrees to sell the goods or transfer the ownership of the goods to the buyer after getting the price of the goods. Okay, that's all, the simple meaning. Okay, that is called contract of sale of goods. So we can that sentence, if the what is given there is the contract of sale of goods is a contract. So okay, it's a contract whereby the seller transfers or agrees to transfer, or he will agree, okay, tomorrow I will sell goods to you. Okay, that either he will, today he will deliver, or tomorrow he will agree to deliver. So agrees to transfer the property or ownership of the goods. Okay, property means that goods. Okay, that when we transfer the goods, what is also transferred? The ownership is also transferred. That is why ownership of goods also transferred to the buyer for a price. Okay, nothing but a sale. Here that ownership is also transferred to the buyer. That is what you have to understand. Okay, so here you may not think that one who is having the product, the possession of the goods, is not that transfer of ownership of goods. Okay, it may not confuse that one, these two. Now we will learn the essential elements of a contract of sale. Elements of contract of sale. The first one is two parties. We know what are the two parties involved in the contract of sale of goods, the seller and the buyer. Okay, the two parties involved in this contract of sale of goods is the buyer and the seller. Here the buyer has to get the goods from the seller. Okay, that we cannot say if two persons involved are in that in suppose they at the time of we pledge some goods, isn't it, or the banker, he will compel, or the court will compel the seller, that the person to purchase, he has to pay the goods and he is getting his own goods. That we cannot say as a that sale. Okay, here two parties involved, but we cannot say that is it is element of sale. Okay, it will not become under the say agreement to sell. Okay, the next one, transfer of property. So we know in the meaning itself we learned transfer of property. So here the seller agrees to transfer the title of goods or the property of the goods to the buyer. Okay, for just getting by getting the amount as price. Okay, here if we cannot say that transfer of ownership means if a person possesses a good, we cannot say that is that a transfer of ownership. Okay, so for example, I purchased a watch and I am wearing, that is that ownership is transferred to me, isn't it? So that ownership of the owner of that watch is me. But if a person steals a watch and he is wearing that watch, that he is possessing that watch, but the ownership is not his, isn't it? So that we should differentiate between that ownership of property and ownership of the goods, and that transfer of property are different, not the same. Then goods, for any purchase and sale or the contract of sale of goods, the goods is very important one, isn't it? Here all the goods that we will learn in that one, the share, even goods, we know all the existing goods, isn't it? Maybe the that is share, we can say stock, we are purchasing, selling, isn't it? Share, stock, all the movable things, move what we can move. Okay, that without the furniture, then everything we will come under goods. But what will not be under the under this term goods? Money will not come. Okay, then any immovable property will not come under the term goods. We will never say goods we purchase. Then immovable property means the land, land, building, they are immovable properties, but we never say that is goods. Okay, so money will not come under the heading goods, and also the immovable properties also will not come. Then the actionable claim, that actionable claim means that insurance policy if we take that one. Then fixed deposit certificate we may have, we have deposited around 10 lakhs in a bank and we have a certificate in our hand, that we never say good, we never transfer that one. Okay, but all the other things we can say. For example, that copyrights, trademark, this one we that will come under the heading goods, because that things can be transferred, that a title of ownership can be transferred from one person to another. So the copyright, trademark, goodwill, all these will come under the heading goods. Okay, then price. Price, we know the monetary consideration, that means how much we pay for that goods. Okay, so if they do not pay a price, it will not come under the contract of sale of goods. Okay, if we exchange the goods for another goods, that is not a sale, that is barter system, isn't it? So here sale means they will get a price. That is called, that price is that monetary consideration. In money we need to receive. Okay, for the transfer of ownership of goods. Then this contract of sale of goods includes both sale and agreement to sale. Both. Okay. Agreement to sell. Sale and agreement to sell. So what is the difference between sale and agreement to sell? So sale means the at the that transfer of ownership and getting the payment will be done at the same moment at the time of sale. But here they agree to sell, but the actual transaction takes place on a future date. That is the difference. Okay. Now we will see the difference between sale and agreement to sell. Okay, what is sale? Here the ownership is transferred from the seller to the buyer immediately, isn't it? Immediate, at the right moment. The sale takes place and the getting payment takes place and the ownership transfers takes place. Everything takes place at the same moment, immediately. But this one at a future date. That is the main difference. That the ownership is transferred on a future date. Okay, they may have some conditions to be fulfilled. After that fulfilling those conditions only, the sale takes place. Okay, so on a future date it will take place. Here, a risk of loss. Here, if the goods are destroyed, see they have purchased the goods, then who has to bear the loss? Here the buyer only has to bear the loss. Okay, because the ownership is transferred to the buyer. Okay, so the buyer only has to bear the loss. Here the seller has to bear the loss because the goods they have agreed to sell, but actually the ownership is not transferred from the seller to the buyer. So if any loss incurred for the goods, then that seller only has to incur the loss. Then if they violate the laws, the contract, what they can do? Here the ownership is transferred to the buyer, so he cannot repossess the goods. Okay, he cannot repossess the goods, but he can file a case against the buyer. Okay, he can file a case against the buyer, that's all, and he can get the compensation from the buyer, but he cannot repossess the goods because already the sale took place and the ownership is transferred to the buyer. Okay, so but here in agreement to sell, what is happening, he can repossess the goods, and for violating the law he can also file a case, but he can repossess the goods also. But here in the sale he cannot get the possession, but he can file a case for compensation. Okay, then what is the nature of contract? Here we can say it is an executed contract or completed contract, but here it is not an executory contract. it is executed contract. That means completed. It is not completed, so we can say it is executory contract. They are going to execute the contract. Execute means that put into practice. Here that contract is already over, isn't it? They have completed the contract, but they are going to complete the contract. The insolvency of the buyer. Insolvency of the buyer. If the buyer is becoming insolvent, what will happen? The same thing, he cannot get back the goods, okay, but he can file a case and he can get the compensation from the official receiver. One person will be the official receiver. That person, he has to deliver the goods, okay. So if it is already delivered, he can get the compensation from that official receiver, okay. But in this agreement to sell, if the buyer becomes insolvent, then he uh, he cannot repossess the goods, isn't it? Because already the goods are in his custody only, but he has to give the goods to the official receiver. He has to deliver the goods to the official receiver, okay. Then the last one, if the seller becomes insolvent. If the seller becomes insolvent because he is getting the goods from him, if he has not got the goods from the seller, he can get the goods from the official receiver, okay. He can get the goods from the official receiver. Here he cannot do, because here that possession is to the buyer, that is why he can get from him, but his possession is not transferred to the buyer, so he cannot get the goods from the official receiver, but he can only get that rateable dividend or any compensation can be received from the seller, okay. All this you have to just read. Now we will see the types of goods. Types of goods. So, first you should know what are goods, isn't it? We have learned already what are goods. All the movable property, okay, all the movable things, all movable properties other than the money and actionable claim, okay. Here actionable claim only we have studied, the fixed deposit receipt, then any dividend due from the share, then that LIC policy amount, or from any other money receivable, okay. That goods will not come. Only all the movable properties. Movable properties. We have studied immovable properties will not come under goods. For example, land or building, this will not come under goods, okay. Movable properties. Here it includes what? Share, stock, or the properties on the land. That means the growing crop, okay. Growing crop, we can say the trees on the land, they will come under this goods, okay. Then all the intangible asset, copyright, goodwill, trademark, patent, then electricity, okay, then water, power, all these will come under the name goods, okay. Again, goods are divided into three. First one, existing goods. Existing goods. Here, as per the meaning, no, as the word, the existing goods means the goods exist with the seller, okay, or the goods possessed by the seller at the time of contract of sale. That is called existing goods. Okay, here we can say the dealers or the agents, those who sell the goods, they also have the goods at the time of selling, isn't it? At the time of contract, they possess the goods. So we can say they are the existing goods. Here these existing goods are again divided into specific goods, ascertained goods and unascertained goods. Okay, we will learn about what is specific goods. Here, specific goods means we identify some goods. For example, we can say we go to a textile shop, we select a particular dress, okay, dress, and we, from variety of things, we are selecting a particular thing. That is called specific goods. Okay, we identified and ascertained, we can say. Okay, so the goods are identified among the various varieties of goods. Okay, we select a particular product, that is called specific goods. Okay, then ascertained goods. Here this one related to this one only, but here we will form one contract. After the contract, we are going and identifying the product. The product here means the goods. Okay, after the contract, first we come into a contract that we are going to buy a product. Okay, we go to a showroom to buy a car, and we are okay, I am going to buy a car. Okay, then we, after that one, we go to select which one we need. Okay, that one is called ascertained goods. Unascertained goods. Here at the time of contract, they have not identified and they have not agreed. Okay, that is called unascertained goods. Not identified, we do not know which one we are going to buy, and we have not agreed upon also. We have not agreed and we have not identified. They are called unascertained goods. Many goods we can the various cars will be there from different that showroom. Okay, in a particular showroom, different models of car will be available. Okay, so we are going to select, but we have not agreed to buy a car, and we have not identified. Okay, we just go and see many cars, so that will come under unascertained goods. Okay, so all these goods are available. That's existing goods. Specific goods, we from the existing goods we have identified a particular type of particular product, that is called identified goods. Okay, specific goods. Here ascertained goods, this we identify after the we have made an agreement to purchase. Okay, after the formation of the contract, we are identifying that particular product, that is ascertained goods. Unascertained goods means we have not identified and we have not agreed to buy. Simply we go and see the car, that one not identified and not ascertained. Then the second type of goods is future goods. Here the goods are not available at the time of contract of sale. Okay, at the time of contract of sale, the goods are not available, but they may transfer the ownership of goods at a future date. Okay, so the seller may not have the possession of the goods at the time of contract, but on a future date he will possess the goods and he will sell the goods. Okay, we will place an order to someone, isn't it? So they will purchase from somebody and they will give that product. That type of goods we can say future goods. Okay, they may not have many. They will get the order, and after 1 week they will deliver the goods. That goods we that contract of sale we can say that future goods. At the time of contract of sale, the goods are not available with the seller. Okay, that he may produce the goods, or he may manufacture, or he can buy and sell the goods. Okay, then the third one is contingent goods. Contingency we know, isn't it? Where the any incident, whether it may happen or may not happen, that is called contingency, isn't it? So here, what is contingent goods? That goods that the seller may not have the goods at the time of contract of sale, and that the seller also purchase the goods, or seller may have the goods at a future date. That also depend upon one contingency. Okay, maybe the condition, okay, or contingency fulfilling a condition. So here see, it is related to a part of future goods, we can say this contingent goods. Okay, here they will place one condition. If that condition is fulfilled, then they will get the goods from someone and they will give. Okay, so we can say sometime, you can say one example. If a person, okay, for a marriage wedding feast, a person may place an order for many things, isn't it? And they may say, if that wedding function is performed on a particular date only, that I will deliver all these goods. So it is the engagement over, so they will say one particular in after 3 months you have to give you have to deliver these goods. Okay, so that goods we can say as contingent goods. Then the next heading is transfer of ownership. We will learn for all these things which are goods, existing goods, when the transfer of ownership is transferred. Okay, for ownership transferred means that passing of the property, the title to goods, when it is transferred, that is called transfer of ownership. For anything, even we go, just imagine we are going to buy something. Okay, the seller, two parties, buyer and seller. Then when we pay the price of the product, the seller will transfer the goods to us, isn't it? So what is the meaning of that one? From that moment onwards, the ownership is transferred from the seller to us, isn't it? That is called transfer of ownership. That is the main contract of any sale, isn't it? Any sale takes place, the seller will sell the goods, then buyer is buying, and the ownership is transferred from the seller to the buyer immediately, isn't it? That is transfer of ownership. Or we can say that another heading they have given, passing of property. The same meaning only. Okay, passing of property. When he will pass the property, that means when he will give the goods. Once we pay the price of the goods, the seller will pass the property to us, isn't it? So what is the meaning passing of property? Nothing but transfer of ownership, transfer of title of a property. That also we can say transfer of title. Okay, transfer of title to goods. Okay, we have studied transfer of ownership, transfer of title to title of goods, passing of property. Everything gives the same meaning. Okay, so we are going to learn for the specific goods when the ownership is transferred. Okay, for the specific goods, we know what is specific goods. We have selected, isn't it? That is called specific goods. So when the ownership is transferred at the time of payment of the price. Okay, payment and when the ownership is transferred, both, everything takes place at the same moment, isn't it? Price, the payment of price and the transfer of property takes place at the same time, isn't it? So here they do not have any condition. We are selecting, isn't it? We are going to a textile shop and select a particular thing, and when the ownership is transferred, when we make the payment, isn't it? At the time of making the payment, the property is passed from the seller to the buyer. Okay. Then another one, here for the specific goods, two way they can transfer the property, transfer the title to goods. At the time of contract. One, at the time of contract. Then sometimes this title can be passed beyond the contract, beyond the date of contract. How? When all the goods cannot be delivered. Some goods cannot be delivered on the date of agreement. The seller has to do some activities. For example, a car may be purchased and they have to fit some of the things, isn't it? To make it as a usable condition, they have to do some activities, fixing the that mirror, then inside that reverse thing, then AC connection. All these things have to be attached. Only then the seller can deliver the goods, isn't it? So after doing all these activities only, that ownership is transferred. Okay, that one another beyond the date of contract. Then sometimes this goods has to be weighed, or they have to weigh the goods, or they have to do some test. Okay, test of the goods. They will test the goods whether it is in the runnable condition. If it is a car, isn't it? Whether they have to they will check whether the car is in a movable condition. They can run on the road. Okay, that can be checked. Or if they buy some goods, for weight, they will agree that for each kg I will pay rupees 50. So the seller has to weigh the goods, and the buyer has to agree with that weight. Then only the buyer can pay the fixed amount, isn't it? So that weighing, testing, if anything has to be done for the goods, then that ownership transferred beyond the date of contract, not at the time of contract. Okay. First, the goods are not in a deliverable condition. That one, they have to do some additions, or that anything has to be fixed to the particular product, or they have to attach some more parts of the things. Then it will take place, the delivery will take place beyond the contract. So the transfer of ownership also takes place beyond the date. Okay. Then unascertained goods. For the unascertained goods, when the ownership transferred. So here unascertained goods, we have not ascertained. Okay. So we have not identified the particular product. So when the goods, when the ownership will transfer, when the goods are ascertained only. Okay, unascertained goods, we cannot transfer the title. So when the goods are ascertained, many goods will be there in the car showroom. There will be many model, many brand cars will be there. So he has to identify. So once he has ascertained only, the delivery can be taken place. Okay, so at the time of ascertainment of the goods only, they can transfer the goods. Okay. So here, once he has ascertained the goods, what the seller will do? We see, we are also going to a shop and we select costly. We are selecting many things, isn't it? And we just keep aside some of the goods. So what the seller will do? He will keep aside that particular dress, isn't it? In the same way, we go and select whatever things from a shop, they will keep aside. So the seller's duty to keep aside those goods. Okay. Then when the goods are appropriated to the contract. Appropriated. What is the meaning? Appropriation. So what is the meaning of appropriation? So here they will be the goods will be identified. They have to, the buyer has to identify, and they have to isolated. They have to keep aside. That is called isolated. Here with the consent of the seller and the buyer. Okay, here the buyer will ascertain the goods, the seller will keep aside. Here both the people has to ascertain the product, and they have to keep aside with the consent of the seller and the buyer. Okay, here both they both are included. So we can say here it is a bilateral activity. Both the people have to agree. Okay, here we purchase a car, then the seller also will say this brand car, then the model, the number, everything they will agree, and both the people have to agree. I have purchased this model car. Okay, this year's model, and the brand name, everything they will agree together. That is called appropriation. Okay. Or once the appropriation gets over, the ownership also is transferred to the buyer. Okay, he has agreed with, okay, everything I have agreed with this one. Then he has selected a particular car. Then that once that appropriation gets over, the title to goods, or that ownership is transferred to the buyer. Okay, for example, another one example given in the book, oil company, they are going to purchase some oil, and the buyer has given some bottles to be filled in the filled by the buyer. Okay, so the seller has filled all the oils in the bottle. So once he has filled the oil in his bottles, the all the bottles were provided by the buyer. Okay, so when that is called appropriation. Okay, that conditions. So once that appropriation gets over, the ownership is transferred to the buyer. That means the title to goods is transferred to the buyer. Okay, then delivery, another one, delivery to the contractor or the carrier. Delivery to the carrier. Sometimes the goods will be transported from one place to another, so the seller will send the goods to the truck or maybe the railway station, to the train. Okay, so once the delivery is transferred to the carrier, then that ownership is also transferred to that transport company. Okay, that ownership will not be vested with the seller. It is transferred from the seller to the carrier. Okay, that's all. Then the other kind is goods sent on approval or return basis. Goods sent on approval or return basis. Okay, here we know that name itself, goods are sent to the buyer on approval. Once if he has approved only, he will keep the goods. If he has not approved the goods, he will return those goods to the seller. Okay, that type of sale. Okay, it is another contract. Here the dealer, we can say, they will sell the goods. If the goods are not saleable, they will return the goods to the buyer. Okay, when the ownership is transferred, here if when he approves the uh, that goods, if he has approved that one, at the time of communicating itself, the ownership is transferred. Okay, so or he will approve after some activities takes place. They may do some activities or some action has to be done, then after that action only the ownership will be transferred. Or return basis. So they may, when the goods will be the title will be transferred, they will give within 3 months time you have to sell or you have to return the goods. So if the expiry of the 3 months, that when that 3 months gets over, the ownership will be transferred to the buyer. Okay, so if one time limit is not given, they will fix themselves a reasonable time. Okay, that after that time the ownership will be transferred from the buyer, from the seller to the buyer. Okay, students, we will mark the questions in the that intercession time. Okay, 3 to 4, 3 to 3:40. Okay, so I will mark the question answers at that time. Okay, thank you, students.